Matt, thanks for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, man. Good. I remember a bunch of girls from high school going to that La La Land or coffee shop all the time, driving down from Frisco. Like they would post it. There was at least like 2 a week. I remember seeing that place. I've never actually been, but I used to see it all the time.
It's good coffee. It's good coffee, and it's a nice experience in there. It's all about kindness. Look, we will talk about the offseason and also how maybe things have not been kind to Mike Norvell for FSU.
Yeah.
But let's lead off with the big news. Everyone here on this podcast tuned in for this moment. Charlie Woods committing to FSU golf. The son of Tiger Woods is headed to Tallahassee to play his collegiate golf.
Yeah, this was a secret for a pretty long time in Tallahassee. It felt like it became common knowledge around some big money boosters over the last few months or so, probably. But it's huge for the program, the university, to have a name like that coming. Everyone's on Twitter making a big deal about like what FSU could have paid him to come. I don't get the sense they paid him a lot, or if they paid him at all as of now, because he's not. His scores against Tiger Woods' kid. The kid has potential. He has shot good scores, but he's not consistent yet. So that's where you're waiting to see him. And the kid's 16, 17. So you still got a lot of time to do that. And he has all the potential there. And he has the genes there for sure. It's huge just for brand name of Tiger Woods' kid is coming to Florida State. He joins up with Miles Russell, who's the #1 junior golfer in the world in the same class. So probably one of the best golf recruiting classes of all time when you take a step back and look at what they're getting in that 2027 class. Man, it's going to be insane what that's going to be able to bring to FSU golf, and what it already has, just how it blew up. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a golf recruiting commitment graphic from Rivals or On3 until yesterday. So it was some news we were waiting to drop for a while, and it's good to see it actually truly come to fruition and be official.
And I think with Charlie Woods, there's not this huge like sense of, okay, he's going to be Tiger Woods, and there's not that level of buzz around his play, but he is a good golf prospect. I mean, he was recruited at a high level. SMU was involved there as well. And I'm with you from what I heard once it kind of came down, that this wasn't about money. I mean, this is about where he wanted to spend his collegiate years in playing golf. And, I think whenever you're recruiting somebody like a Tiger Woods, or what happened with Miami with Kai Trump, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of people you got to talk to and things you got to check. And, kudos to FSU, man, for checking all the boxes to make this a place for Charlie where he felt comfortable enough to go ahead and commit and make that decision. And so it'll be quite the career to follow. And look, he gets to stay
for sure.
Yeah, he's going to battle against his old man's school at some point in Stanford, and that maybe they'll have a mixed tournament with Miami, and it'll be Woods versus Trump.
I wonder if they'll actually. Yeah, I wonder if they'll actually sell tickets, because I mean, I went to the regional last year. And they, you can just walk on and could watch. Like, I wonder if they'll actually sell tickets, because you'll have Miles Russell there too, who will be a future major champion. So it's like they should just start to fundraise through that. There's no reason to let people on for free now when you get to that.
Exactly. It's all about making a buck, and it's all about grabbing a win if you're Mike Norvell this season, just as a whole, right? Getting back to a high level of performance in this FSU program. And look, the Seminoles have fallen on tough times. There's no doubt about it. But there's a lot of investment going on with the facilities and all the things that they put in place. Take us through a little bit of this offseason for Mike Norvell, the transfer portal, how recruiting finished, all of those things. Where would you say things stand right now, just trying to look at 2026? We know all the noise around Mike Norvell's future, but has he teed them up for success this season?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to say, and I'm not really sure if we can tell yet, just because then you go into the wrinkle of Gus Malzahn leaving at a weird time, like a week or two ago or I think it was last week. Days kind of blend together at this point, but it's because this offense in the portal was recruited for Gus Malzahn offense, and now it's Mike Norvell's offense again after Gus retires. So it'll kind of be interesting to see now. it is important to note that it's not like the offenses are that much different. They do stem from one another. Mike Norvell obviously comes from the Gus Malzahn tree. That's what got him to come as the offensive coordinator, and it just in the first place. So it's not a huge difference. The skill set still isn't like, it's not that huge. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is something different to look at. Like, when Ashton Daniels committed to Florida State, when you had Calandria, DJ Lagway on campus before that, the thing was with the Ashton Daniels was you got him cheaper, and he's probably a better fit for Gus Malzahn offense anyway. So it works. So now that excuse, not to call an excuse, but that is out the window. So we kind of have to wait and see. I like what they've done with the running back room, getting Trey Wisner, and the offensive line. Herb Hand's done a good job there last year. So he hasn't given up, like he's given us a good reason to trust him that he's going to do it again this year. And I think the pieces are there, but we still kind of have to wait and see. The jury's still out on a lot of these guys.
What would you say is the biggest concern area that you need to see in spring football, a big improvement, with that, going into the season?
The defensive line, for sure. It was kind of weird going into the portal because you had the LaSerre twins intending to enter, and you were doing those negotiations, and you ended up getting them back in the boat, but that held a lot of money that you couldn't really use elsewhere to try to go recruit and get another defensive lineman in the portal when you really needed one. So that's kind of where the iffiness is. I would like to see them use in Tony White's 3-3-5 defense. They have this hybrid D-end linebacker edge type that they call a jack, and they didn't use it as much last year. And I think this year they're going to truly use that position more and like have a true edge rusher, which I think could make a world of a difference when it comes to this defense. In general, all the more worries are on the defensive side of the ball because we kind of just have to wait and see. Now, Tony White's done more with less his whole career, so it wouldn't be surprised if they could string it together. I think the secondary is pretty decent. They got some good pieces at linebacker, some that are unproven, but a few good pieces that you think could do well. But yeah, I think the main worry is a defensive line, especially when you're losing a guy like Darrell Jackson, and you've lost a lot there. You know what? The LaSerre twins are really good. Mandrell LaSerre was definitely a freshman All-American, but you wonder how it's going to be without a guy like Darrell Jackson taking up a bunch of bodies in the middle and opening up those holes. So we'll see kind of how that translates next year and then into spring to next year.
And with transfer portal recruiting, how was it kind of looking back on building the roster? Did you notice any changes as far as how they approached the team building, like coming away with a guy like Ashton Daniels, who's kind of been slept on and all of those things, and all of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was really a difference. I think they kind of went about it the way they always have. I think Mike Norvell has a good confidence in the portal, and they were trying to make front office changes. That was this offseason's big move in the building, was having more of a front office and hiring John Garrett as your GM and bringing in Taylor Edwards as player personnel from Miami. But it's those guys were kind of brought in too late to have a true impact on this portal class, on this recruiting class, because at the point where they had been brought in, the staff was already creating their board for the portal and hitting up agents and feeling things out. That was already happening before John Garrett and Taylor Edwards even stepped foot on campus. Now, when they stepped foot on campus, were those the two that ran negotiations for the most part in the portal? Yes, 100%. But you wonder what hand in evals and stuff they had with that little bit of time. I think there was a few because I think John Garrett really likes his Ivy League guys. We saw a couple of those guys come on campus towards the end. So I think they did get some kind of say in it. But when it came to the difference, it wasn't anything we really going to see this cycle. We'll see it next cycle just with the timing of everything, which was kind of weird. It was kind of one of those things at the time that we were like, all right, we've heard about these front office changes. Like, you need to make them now if you're going to make them. And it just kind of took a little while. But now that they're hitting the ground running, I think it's been good. I really like what Taylor Edwards and John Garrett have done so far. Just, again, as I said, there's still a lot to be seen. So it's just kind of hard to give a grade or judge it right now.
And, when you look at the fit of Ashton Daniels, now that Mike Norvell is the play caller, did you see how much does it change your projection? Because I like it that, one, Ashton Daniels doesn't come in with much fanfare and all of those things, but he is a really, really good player when he's on. It's been getting him in a good situation. He's been at Stanford. He's been at Auburn. It's just not been a good situation for him, whether in any offense, but he's got the talent.
Yeah, I think it's, he's still, like you said, he still fits a Norvell offense. He's not like a much different body type than a Jordan Travis. And that's what a lot of people have been saying, or Florida State fans on our boards have been saying. What's going to be interesting about it is there's definitely going to be a QB competition at FSU come this spring. Now, I still would put my money on Ashton Daniels to be the starter. I would kind of be surprised if he wasn't. But you have Kevin Sperry there, who a lot of people are excited about as well, who could – at the price point where they got Ashton Daniels, Sperry's definitely going to be able to compete. Again, as I said, I think it's still likely that Ashton Daniels wins the job, but it'll still be a competition. But yeah, I think it's got a chance to be a good situation for Ashton Daniels. And I've said it a lot, the quarterback up for this offense this next year doesn't have to be flashy. He doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to do everything, because you have two good running backs in Trey Wisner and Usman Chroma behind you. And you have a receiver in Deuce Robinson who you could throw it up in a 5-mile radius and he will come down with it. Right. So you don't have to do that much. So as you said, yeah, this is probably the best situation he's ever stepped into, just with the pieces around him and, having a foot in as the starter, because it's just like, and even with more receivers, you got Mekhi Danzy, who did a lot of good things last year, and Javon Boggs, who he had a lot of injuries, but was one who everyone was excited about coming out of spring fall camp. So he's got good pieces around him to where he doesn't need to be flashy. He doesn't need to be the best quarterback in the world. He just needs to do his job and be serviceable. And, I don't want to say the game manager that we say for like the NFL quarterbacks that aren't that great, but have played pieces around him, but that's all he needs to be. He doesn't need to do anything special when it comes to 2026.
And you talked about the defensive line. Where did that kind of go wrong? And because that's always been such a unit of like pride and strength for FSU, in my opinion. And now kind of rebuilding that back up and trying to figure out what that looks like for this season.
Yeah, I don't know if I know where it went wrong either. It just kind of didn't work last year outside of Mandrell and Daryl Jackson and Daryl Desir as well. It's we kind of had to see. I think Terrence Knighton, the FSU defensive line coach, is a good coach. I think a lot of it with this Tony White defense, and what I've been saying is I don't think he had the right guys for his defense last year, and I think that became pretty clear because the 3-3-5 is pretty specific to what kind of types they want or need to be able to fit their scheme, and they just kind of had what they inherited last year. They didn't get much in the portal. They had a few guys that they got, like James Williams followed the Nebraska staff over there. That did not work out. And then you had a few other guys, Stephon Thompson, Elijah Herring, that just didn't really fit. I think it was more of like, we need to come in here and we can get what we can get right now. And then we have some good pieces already here and we can just see what we do with it. Like I said, I don't think they were operating where they wanted to be when it came to personnel, because like that jack roll I was explaining, they didn't get to use it last year. And if they can use it this year with the guys they got Rylan Kennedy from Texas A&M. You probably know him, Billy. I think it was Lake Dallas High School that he went to, if I remember right. And it's you got Jalen Anderson in from the JUCO level who could play that role as well as Tay Diggs, Coastal Carolina transfer last year. So, I think now what you'll see is they have the right guys for their positions that they want to use in their scheme, which could play a big difference. And they also have the, new edges coach, Nick Williams, who's known as a good recruiter coming in. And, they didn't have an edges coach last year. So I wonder if that makes a difference when it comes to using that jack roll or being able to set the edge better. That was a big issue for this team last year with their ends. So I think that could be something we see a big improvement come 2026.
Yeah. I'm still getting used to it too. No, let's end with this. Mike Norvell, just how has he been throughout this? What have you noticed from him as far as how he's taken this whole situation, knowing all the things that he might have to do to keep his job, and putting together a portal class, and now saying, I'm going to be the play caller and we're going to just elevate Tim Harris and do those things and just kind of put it on him in a sense this season?
Yeah, I think so. We haven't gotten him yet since Gus Malzahn retired, and I think that'll be telling. If you look at his press conference when they announced GM Garrett, his body language wasn't great. Now, to put in context, that's also the day they had both Ashton Daniels and DJ Lagway on campus. So I think anybody wouldn't want to be there when you have that important stuff that you're trying to get done on campus. So like, I don't blame him for having bad body language at that press conference. I think again, nobody would want to be there, but I think that'll be telling. I think, honestly, I bet you he's excited to call plays again. That was the biggest thing with Malzahn retiring, not out of nowhere, but when it happened was, at least now this is in Mike's hands, right? So if you're going to go down, if the ship's going to go down, at least you're going to be the one in control and you're going down swinging. And, that's the way he came up. I think the power dynamic with Gus, as close as him and Mike are, him being his mentor, I think it was just strange in the building from some stuff that we've heard. Like I just don't think it worked at the end of the day. It is better for Mike to be on his own and be calling plays and not be the CEO role. And also the thing was last year you took away play calling, this year you took away evaluations and getting in GM and negotiations. So it was at the point to where you were like, well, what does Mike do? Right? Like at this point, he's a motivational speaker for the team if he's not calling plays or he's not evaling or doing anything. So at least that takes that part away, right? He does have a job. He is doing something and is going to be back involved in the game planning. So I think it's going to be good for him. I think when next time we see him, he'll be more upbeat and in a good mood. He was up big. That's the way Mike Norvell is full of energy, and he was that way through portal recruiting when we saw him outside. If people don't know, he greets every recruit on the curb when they pull up outside of the building and then walks them in and then do this whole grand entrance. So you could see the energy there, but I think it's going to be even more energy now that he has more control of the program, even more so now.
I lied. We're going to do one more thing. This FSU schedule, not leading off, but opening with New Mexico week 0. They get a tune-up before SMU comes to town right after that. A big weekend on Labor Day for that one, which we're excited for, both of us on this podcast. A lot of things planned. We'll have to do a war chant on the Pony Express live show before. But the schedule with Alabama, Miami, Clemson on it.
It's insane.
It's a challenge. It reminds me of what maybe Billy Napier faced this year at Florida with the daunting schedule that they had, and everybody, obviously, and rightfully so, said, all right, well, he's going to get fired. But he also played one of the toughest schedules in the league. How does that schedule conversation shape up around this? I mean, this is a tall task for Mike Norvell and company.
It might this might sound bad to say, but I think a lot's going to be decided from that SMU game, and that's like a pretty important game on the schedule that'll kind of set the tone. If they can win that game, because no one's gonna, if they lose to Alabama, whatever, you're not expected to win that. I wouldn't say you're expected to win the SMU game right now either, but if you can win that game, it sets the tone for the rest of the season that all right, something's there. You just beat a good team while I was at home. You beat a team that's been good. They've been at the top of the ACC for their 2 years in the league. So now we can kind of get this thing rolling. And, then the games like Miami, Clemson look a lot more winnable than they do now. I think it's all about setting that tone with that game. Now, if you lose that game, I can see things snowballing. Then you lose to Alabama the next week you have bye week, then you lose to Alabama, and then you don't really have much time to get back on your feet. So that's what, I looked at that schedule and I was like, at my first glance, now I calmed down a little bit, but my first glance, I was like, I could see a way where they go 2-10 again. That wouldn't surprise me. Now, that's probably not going to happen. I'm sure they'll win a game here or there in that schedule. But and it's a lot of you look at the schedule and there aren't a lot of guaranteed wins other than your 2 cupcake games. And if it snowballs early and you lose the SMU game, I'll say not you probably have to lose it handily for things to start snowballing, but I think a lot of it is going to be determined there before you even get into the rest of the schedule.
All right, Matt LaSerre of Warchant, we appreciate you stopping by with us this morning on the show and talking all things FSU, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.